Rob, welcome to Axel's Garage. It is ungodly early 30 in the morning, and I made the appointment a couple of weeks ago, but we're taking the Maverick in for our second service. So what had happened was, I'm watching my oil life monitor, and the app on the phone gives you estimated distance, and it hit like 1,600 miles estimated distance. It gives you a date also, but you can't go by that date, especially if you're going to take a trip. And the girls were taking a trip to see Emily down in South Carolina. So I'm looking, I'm going, okay, that's usually a 1,400 mile trip, depending on where they go when they're down there and things like that. So let me make the appointment for the week that they get back. So they got back Tuesday. It's now Saturday. I made a Saturday morning appointment because you can, I was told the last time on the first trip that you could wait for the car if you do it like early on a Saturday morning. So I did an early Saturday morning appointment. They had 1,600 miles. They drove about 1,600 miles, and the meter on the app went down to 250 miles remaining. And then when they were down there, and they hadn't even drove that amount of time, and then it slowly made its way back up. So right now it's reading like 1,000 miles or 800 miles remaining. I'll have to check it when we get to the dealer. It kept going up, you know, with their trip. So they put 1,600 miles on it. We got a total of 16,075 miles right now, and we're gonna head over to the dealer. I only made, what, 6,000 miles. 6,000 miles on this oil change, where the first one was 10,000. So we'll talk about that and the reasons why as well in a bit. Let's head over to the dealer. So as I'm driving to the dealer, I flipped over to my trip odometer. It's got two trip odometers in the car, and one of them is about, this is the street, I believe this is the street. One of the trip odometers I reset when I got the oil changed last. This way I could get a grip on my miles and mileage. So I flipped over to that, and I got 6,078.8 miles on this oil change. And my average for the duration of the oil change was 30.6, which is considerably lower than we had gotten previously, which was, I believe, the first oil change, we were up around 37 and change on the average. And we do put a lot of highway miles on it, which where we average roughly 39 to 41. We don't put a lot of long trip city driving, which is really where the hybrid shines. When we do have those long trip city driving, we're up, you know, in the high 40s. We do a lot of short trip city driving where it's under 1.5 miles, and the hybrid doesn't get a chance to do its thing, and that one kind of brings you down a little bit. We average probably around 34 to 37 there, but as an overall 37 or so. Like, you know, our first 10,000 miles, the overall mileage was about 37, and now we're down about 31, we'll call it. So 6 miles per gallon difference, and we'll talk about why as well. Today's video is sponsored by 4Q Coffee. 4Q is real local New York coffee, and it's New York coffee with attitude. They have great blends of coffee in both K-Cups and ground. We here especially like their regular blend, which is marketed as an all-day bold coffee. It's not like other bold coffees that often taste bitter and burnt. Do you ever drink a strong, bold coffee, and by the second cup, it's starting to churn up your gut, and you're looking for the nearest bathroom in a sweaty fury? Not with 4Q. Their regular blend coffee is bold, and you can enjoy it all day long. The best part is they are a first responder supporter, and they have some outrageous swag on their website. Check out 4Q Coffee in the link below, and use code AXLES at checkout for a 10% discount. Support those who support us. Now back to the video. Hey, good morning. You have an appointment, right? Yep. Just 16078.
16078.
Yeah, it's just the second maintenance.
Maintenance? Okay.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
No problem. Head inside. You could either wait for Will or Karen.
Okay.
Either one, they'll take care of it.
All right, thank you. So, checked in, told them I'm waiting for it. And here I am sitting outside watching all the cars roll in on a Saturday morning. It seems like Saturday morning should be the working people, right? People that work and can't get here during the week easily. But it's like the Blue Hair Special. All the retired people are here. I mean, not retired like me, but like really retired, like in their 80s. It's definitely the Blue Hair Special here on a Saturday morning. Anyway, what's kind of neat is as you drive into that garage that I showed you, they have some kind of, you know, spaceship scanner satellite that checks your alignment. And I'll show you, it shows up on a screen in there. So my alignment's good, which I'm amazed at because it's New York and my wife drives the car most of the time. You know how that goes. I'm watching the cars pulling into the garage. They check you in, you go inside and sit down in their lounge. Pretty nice lounge, filled with old people this morning, so I'm sitting outside, you know, watching everything go in. So the mileage, let's talk about the mileage. Oh, one other thing, this was my last free oil change. So number 2 was my last, which it shouldn't be. The salesman told me 4 or 5, which we know what 4 or 5 means. It means 4, and it actually meant 2. So I'll send him an email this week, and hopefully he'll be able to get me 2 more oil changes. So it's like $89 for the standard oil change, you know, with rotate the tires, which isn't horrible. I'll send the salesman an email. Hopefully we'll get 2 more oil changes. I'll let you know as that progresses as well. So now the mileage. That first service that we got was 10,000 miles. Started in April. It was sort of mild when we got the car. We ran it through the summer, and the first oil change was somewhere in October. We hit about 10,000 miles, and like clockwork, that 10,000 miles, and the trip computer or the onboard oil diagnostics said oil change, and we hit it right at the right time. I'm sitting here, and I'm watching. You know, it's a little after 8. All the salesmen seem to be pulling in for their day at work, and what's odd is they're all parking in the customer parking spots. So the parking spots where the customers are supposed to park, all the salesmen are parking in it, and there are no young car salesmen anymore. It appears that all the car salesmen look like elderly retired mob bosses. It's kind of funny, but is what it is, I guess. Don't see my salesman pulling in. That would be a bonus, because then I could ask him about the service, but I'll guess I'll send him an email. So it was much too busy at the dealership to keep talking. People kept coming out. It was a pain in the ass. But where were we at? We were at the mileage. So I went from April when I bought it to probably around October, beginning of November, when we had the first service. It was 10,000 miles exactly. The sensor said, you know, the app or the sensor, whatever it is, said, hey, it's time to do the oil change. Right at 10,000 miles, we brought it in to the oil change, and our average mileage over that whole time was 37, which I thought was pretty good considering the amount of long trips, which put us at roughly 39 to 41 on the long trips, and the short trips, you know, we were hurting our mileage, but averaging 37 over the long haul. I didn't think that was too bad. This time we only went 6,000 miles, and we had to do another oil change. Okay, why? How come we only got 6 when we got 10 initially? So I was thinking about it, how it all works, and temperatures. So the first 10,000 miles, average temps were probably over 50 degrees, predominantly over 50 degrees. Now, the batteries work better when they're at more of a stable temp, not necessarily a extreme hot or extreme cold. So it was the good part of the year. Temperature wise, it's better for the batteries. So the batteries ran more, I'm thinking, in that first 10,000 miles because of temperature. And if that's the case, then that could play a role in two ways. And what I'm thinking is it's going to play a role the initial way. Now, the second oil change interval, that 6,000 miles from 10 to 16 was in cold weather. All right, so cold weather, what I'm thinking is going to cause the batteries to run a little less because of the cold temperatures, right? The batteries have to warm up, and you know, the battery system in this vehicle has its own antifreeze system, even a coolant system, to keep the batteries at a stable temperature, and they have to warm up. So in the cold weather, the battery is probably not being used as much as in the warmer weather, which means the engine is going to run more over a period of time. So in the first 10,000 miles, predominantly over 50 degrees, better temperatures for the battery, less time on the engine, on the internal combustion engine, let us go a longer oil change interval, where this 6,000 mile period of an oil change interval, it was cold. It was under 50 degrees almost all the time. Several 6 weeks of below freezing temperatures, and even Michelle and Amanda, who went on a trip with it last weekend, they were below 50 degrees. Even though they went to South Carolina, they were on the west side of South Carolina, and they're pretty much under 50, not really over 50 degrees the entire trip, and their mileage showed. That trip that they did, they came back at, you know, 33 something, 33.7, I believe it was, miles per gallon on their individual trip. So that leads me to believe that temperature, not only does temperature have to do with the oil change interval, because you know the vehicle is going to run more with those lower temperatures, because the batteries aren't in the good temperature range, or the more efficient temperature range, I should say. So it's going to cause the engine, the internal combustion engine, to run more, which is going to explain why the oil change interval was shorter, 4,000 miles shorter, and why the mileage changed anywhere roughly 5 miles to the gallon. So we'll have to see now, this next oil change interval, we're going to be at you know, cold temperatures now in February. We're end of February, but we're going to getting into the warmer temperatures. So I checked the app while I was in the waiting room, and the app said I was down to 150 miles to the next oil change. So I was right on the money, really, when it came to that. You know, it grew when they were on their trip. It was as low as 250, and then they put another 1,000 miles on the car, and it actually grew and went up to 1,000 when they got home from their trip. And then this week of short trips, before I got it in for the oil change, it dropped from 1,000 to 150 miles left in probably 150 miles of street driving. So it's constantly recalculating based on your current driving habits. So I'm sure, you know, I had 150 left. If we would have went back up on the highway and done an all-day highway drive, you know, 12 hours on the highway, I probably wouldn't have, it probably would have recalculated, and I would have had more miles because it was more highway, or just, you know, a longer trip kind of thing, if you understand where I'm getting at. So I think that's the difference in mileage. We're seeing in the real world, whether it be highway, whether it be our short trip city or normal city driving, no matter what it is across the board, we're looking at about a 5 mile per gallon difference when it's temperatures below 50 or below 40 degrees, more likely, especially below freezing. You see a big drop there. And I'm going to say, and that's going to be my hypothesis on this, is that it's going to be the cold temperatures and the battery condition. They're not as efficient in the cold temperatures. Still, I'm happy with the mileage. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It is what it is, and we knew that going into it, that weather can affect battery efficiency. As far as everything else, the second service, I said I was going to wait for it. Saturday morning, I got there at before 8 a.m. and it was 2 hours almost to the minute that the car was ready, and then they give you a free car wash, so that took another 10 minutes. But I got the free car wash. That's why I'm going over the windows now. I'll do the inside of the windows and the outside over again. But we got that free car wash, which is awesome, especially when you live in the Northeast and they brine and salt the roads like crazy. It's good to just, wash it as much as you can in the winter just to get that salt off the car, which just makes everything rust and rot. So trying to get a little more longevity out of it. But let me know what you think about the service intervals. Have you experienced the same thing? Does what I'm saying make sense, that that service interval was shorter in the cold weather because the engine's running more, the gas engine is running more, and the batteries are doing less because of the inefficiency of the batteries in the cold weather? And does it make sense on the mileage end also? It seems to make sense in both directions. The gas engine is running more in the cold temperatures, and that's why we saw a decrease in fuel economy, and we saw a decrease in service interval life. And we'll see on this next change, if it goes back up again, that would make sense. Let me know what you think down below. And as always, thanks for watching.